Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Maddie B. We got a big football week planned here as we get the show underway. We're going to start it off with the NFL Combine. Numbers are starting to come back, and there's one thing that I noticed, Matt. It's that a lot of players are picking and choosing which events to participate in, and I don't remember it being this prevalent in past years, where it's sort of like, hey, I'm not going to run a 40 today. I know my speed's a question, but I'm just going to do football drills. And I think Chase Young was one of those guys where he wasn't like participating in anything. He was more focused on them coming, watch him do a select set of drills. And to me, that's sort of a red flag for a guy that's supposed to be a freak athlete. Because if you remember, like Jadeveon Clowney, everyone was like, well, he doesn't have the film or he's lazy now and stuff, but he went in and put up freak numbers. I don't know if he participated in everything. That's probably actually a good comparison. I'll have to look and see if I can find that quick. But for players to not want to do anything, they're kind of going off of the other route where you're just going to let your film speak for yourself. And so it's going to be interesting to see if that's going to be a trend that continues, where players just don't participate. What are your thoughts on that?
I'll be honest with you. This is the first year in a really long time that I really wasn't as interested in the Combine, and it's accredited to the XFL games and kind of being more interested in watching those as opposed to some of the Combine stuff, because I think the other part to it is that there's so much hype that's given to people that kind of blow the Combine up. Like, for example, last year, DK Metcalf, who ended up getting drafted by Seattle, had a ridiculous Combine. You know, there was like the videos going around of like Pete Carroll taking his shirt off during their interviews and like just saying how freakish he was, that he was his high bust potential because of how well he performed at the Combine. You know, like, there's no way that this actually translates to the NFL. It's great for Combine, it's great for prep work, but the scouts didn't think that it was going to translate as well as what he ended up doing.
Well, I think it comes down to a lot of, you have to look at game film and some of the Combine numbers, because I think it also takes a look at how hard someone's going to be willing to work. And so I just looked up, because Chase Young didn't do it, they did a prospect grade. The NFL has him as a 7.4 on their website. And Clowney did participate. He ran a 4.53 40, 21 reps on the bench press, 37.5 vert, and then 124-inch broad jump. And there's 3 stars. So he was a top performer in the 40-yard dash, the vertical jump, and the broad jump. So you have a couple of numbers there whenever you're looking at the overall stats for him. I think that really stood out. And if you're looking at it in comparison, they have for Bosa, they have his total grade for Clowney as a 7.5. So they have Chase Young slightly lower at a 7.4. And then I pulled up Joey Bosa actually I should be looking at Nick Bosa. Hold on, NFL brought me to the wrong one. But because I know Nick, he skipped a lot of Ohio State season last year to prepare. So I wanted to do a direct comparison for him. And did he participate? Yes, he did. So he did participate, and he got a 7 grade, 4.79 40.
It is helpful for the people that do show that they're participating, because what you got to remember is that for a lot of these guys, their season's ending November/December-ish, and to have that kind of time where you're looking month to 2 months off, our player's going to come there prepared. You know, I think you get your first real taste of our guys willing to put the work in, because you have like the one that jumps out at me was it Alabama, Andre Smith. He was a massive tackle for Alabama, and he showed up and didn't look like he was really prepared, and it ended up falling later to the Bengals. He was one that was supposed to be out of this world and kind of let himself go.
And that's what I was wondering why Chase Young decided not to do that. Because Bosa decided not to come back last year so that he could prepare for the combine. And that's why I knew he had an injury, so I didn't know if he participated. But he did. I mean, his draft or his combine performance was a little bit lower than Clowney. I would say his rookie year was 100 times better than Clowney's rookie year, though. Because he did a 4.79 in the 40, 29 bench press. So he was a little bit stronger than Clowney. But, of course, the jumps and the other athleticism wasn't as high. And they gave him a 7. So they're giving Chase a 7.4 just because they're going off his film. And I feel like Bosa had the pedigree and the film, and I think he had a bigger impact in bigger games. Chase Young kind of disappeared in the Michigan game, and everyone kept saying, well, they schemed around him, and then he didn't really do anything against Clemson either. So, I mean, if teams are going to be able to, you can say that they schemed around him, but they said a lot of the same stuff for other players in the past. I mean, Clowney still put up numbers. They kept saying he didn't care or whatever. He doesn't push hard enough, but you can still get the numbers in big games if you're a big-time player. That's my mentality on it. And so now there's rumors that the Redskins that hold the number 2 pick, that they might be willing to trade it. And I think that's going to make a big impact. If you're Chase Young, you didn't perform. Now, based on what they've seen at the combine, they're not even valuing you enough to get that when you're pushing for number 1, because I think it's pretty much assumed that Burrow is going to be the overall number 1 pick. Have you heard anything different?
No. Well, I think that there's the kind of the Eli Manning thing kind of going on right now where Burrow doesn't want to go to the Bengals. And so he's trying to figure out what his options are. Because at one point he said that he has all this leverage, but then came back and said, no, I'll play for whoever drafts me. So I think he's trying to figure out how to force a trade or to do something to get himself out of Cincinnati, which may not be a bad move, all things considered.
Yeah, but the Bengals, I don't even know. They're not a bad franchise. They had consistency for a while, and they did well when they had Carson Palmer.
Well, I think the big thing with it is that Paul Brown is notorious for being cheap and not paying players that he needs to stay consistently competitive. So when it comes time for contract negotiations, he lets guys go.
Well, I think the big thing for Burrow is he's from Ohio. So, like, if your hometown team is going to draft you, maybe he grew up a Browns fan, I don't know. It said he was from Athens High School, which is in Southeast Ohio. He originally signed to play at Ohio State, ended up getting the transfer. I forget when they even transferred him because he lost the quarterback battle. And now he battled back to be the overall number 1 pick. I really don't see why you'd want to leave that franchise. I mean, it's not like the Bengals are the Browns or someone that have never had success. Even in the 80s, the 90s, they've been a solid team. They've been to Super Bowls. They didn't put it together recently, but the Carson Palmer years, you could argue if he didn't hurt his leg in that Steelers game, they were built for a run, and that kind of set their franchise back, where they then had to make some adjustments, and they lost a lot of momentum with that injury, I feel. And it took a long time for Carson Palmer to come back and have a solid career later on, like he did with the Cardinals. He came back with a different team. So when you're building for that, you have the pieces, and then you have Marvin Lewis and some of the off-the-field stuff that they let go. That if they end that, who cares? I mean, with the salary cap, you really can't say about not paying players in the NFL today. It might not even matter because look at the Patriots. They don't really offer big-time contracts to anybody. They're the number 1 team. I mean, the past 2 decades, decade or two, whatever you want to look at it. I mean, that is the model. So you have a franchise quarterback. If they think Joe Burrow can do that for them and they build around it, I mean, they had Andy Dalton. At some point, the quarterback has to be able to make plays, though, and not hurt your team. I mean, ironically, it happened they lost to the Steelers both times. Whenever they had the Bengals hit, was that the playoffs? Was the first round, or was that I can't even remember it at this point. but you have the Steelers were the ones that delivered the Carson Palmer hit, and then the last run that really made them fall apart. So they have a Steelers problem. Steelers aren't going to be that much of a problem, it looks like, Matt. We'll see.
Well, thinking about Burrow going to the Bengals, I know this is going to be a hypocritical comment, but looking at what Eli Manning was able to do, getting himself out of San Diego and forcing the trade to get him to New York, it obviously benefited his career to not go to the Chargers. I think as much as I don't like it, I think there's something to be said about guys that like him, like John Elway, like Eli, that force their situation to get themselves to a team where they're willing to spend the money to be competitive. And I think there is something to that, because why haven't they been able to get over the top? I think the same reason that there's a lot of franchises that I think you're playing professionally, but within that, are you willing to spend the money to get yourself to the championship level? And to this point, I would say that the Bengals have not shown that they're willing to spend where they need to make that happen.
I could argue it both ways, though. I really don't think it's the money. Because in the NFL, it's not like Major League Baseball. I mean, Matt, we have people arguing with us all the time about how it's not the money for the Pirates, when that sport, it 100% is the money and trying to make long-term adjustments. In the NFL, they're going to pay players pretty much close to the maximum, even if they don't take that philosophy of overpaying guys. Look at the Raiders. They took the opposite approach. They're always extending people to big-time contracts, and it hasn't worked out for them either. So you kind of have to find a balance in what fits you. I think the Bengals' problem is a culture issue on and off the field that they've had. If they can get back to where they have a solid foundation, then you don't have that issue. I mean, you could compare it to, I look at the Cleveland Cavaliers in the NBA. I know we talked about the Beeline thing a week or two ago, but Charles Barkley came out and he basically defended Beeline, saying that what type of players are going to applaud like your coach is giving up because you're not listening to him. Like, you're a professional athlete. At some point, you have to decide that you want to be a winner. I mean, you can collect the money and say, like, well, we deserve this money, or all the other stuff that they have going on. But at some point, you have to come together as a team and decide that you want to win. I mean, if everyone in the building's just there collecting a paycheck saying, oh, they're not going to pay me this or that, then yeah, you're going to have the animosity towards the front office or whatever. I think if they had a quarterback that could block some of that out. I mean, Andy Dalton, he's a good quarterback, and I don't think that there's any issue with him, but sometimes if you bring in some of that fresh blood where you have a young guy that's fiery, he's able to take an LSU that traditionally had the same issue. They had quarterback issue. They had talent. They were consistently middling around like 9 or 10 wins. They had the national championship back in the day before the playoffs. It takes a big-time quarterback to jump up. Clemson had the same issue. Didn't have a quarterback, kept choking in big games. Maybe that's what the Bengals need. If they don't think it's Dalton, maybe it's Burrow, and then some of the contract and franchise type stuff can be figured out. But if it's in the building, that issue needs to be taken care of first. You can't have guys playing favorites or this and that. Look how it destroyed the Steelers.
Well, I think with the Bengals situation, it's very similar to what I see in Jacksonville. I'm going to get into that a little bit later in the show, but I do see a lot of comparables between them.
Yeah, let's spin off because we're going to get back to the NFL here after high tempo, but let's get into the XFL because I don't want to take too long because it seems like we've been going super heavy at the beginning of the show and not spinning up. But the XFL today was under attack by everybody. I mean, I saw people trying to get who was the owner of the AAF that bought him, Tom Dundon? Is that the Hurricanes owner? People were trying to get that trending because they felt like, for whatever reason, and it annoys me, people think that the AAF was a better league than the XFL, and I don't know why. They were
Why?
worse in every possible way. They had a worse TV contract. They had worse teams, worse players. They had worse ratings. They had worse attendance. I mean, everything, Matt. So the fact that people keep attacking them, it just boggles my mind. And I don't want to talk about ratings the whole time because it feels like I've been doing that personally the last couple of weeks, so I'm not going to. But I wanted to mention it because everyone keeps attacking it. The ratings dropped again, but they are still holding strong compared to other sports. The one thing that I keep seeing is, and I don't know if the NFL's like pushing this out, because a lot of people were talking about how the NFL Combine is bigger than the XFL season, and that's why the ratings dropped. It's not true. The numbers came out. The big game had 1.8 million viewers on Saturday on Fox. The NFL Combine didn't even break 1 million. And that was on NBC, Matt. Same exact time. So most people were watching the XFL, and this is the first week that you actually had a football product competing on two different channels. And I think in the past weeks, when we saw the higher numbers, you didn't have that. Excuse me. So that's the one thing that I'm looking at. The numbers might have dropped, but are people watching less football, or are they just watching a competing product? Because if you add in, maybe they won't even get half the guys that the Combine had or whatever, you're going to break 2 million. So I don't think that the overall numbers are bad. The ones that are really strong, and I think bode well for the season, or at least next year and the year after, are the cable numbers. They had them on ESPN2, which traditionally gets lower numbers. They still broke 1 million. And same with Fox Sports 1. 1.1 million. ESPN2 was 1.03. So everyone's knocking it today for whatever reason. I don't understand it. Attendance right now, they dropped again. And I think for the 4 games it averaged 17,000, 17 and a half, which is right around what the entire NBA averaged for this whole season. And that was lower than before. So they're beating the average NBA in ticket sales and attendance at the actual game. They lost to the NBA and NCAA in ratings for their big games this week. But compared to everything else, I don't see an issue with it. So I'm glad that it's going strong. The fact that people are attacking it makes me think that the NFL's taking notice, and the weird AAF attacks, I don't understand where those are coming from, but it's just better at this point. The AAF comparatively last year all had 500,000 viewers at this point in their season, Matt.
But I almost think with the AAF, because there was definitely more of a tie-in to the NFL. It was like they were forcing it to try. And now looking at it in hindsight, I'm wondering if they were using that league to kind of set some kind of, I don't even know what. Because when you look at what the players are doing now and getting ready to negotiate with their collective bargaining agreement, it looks like they're heading towards potentially another strike.
I think the AAF was trying to just steal money from the NFL. Like, I'm not even joking. I think that the Ebersol guy saw a thing and he was trying to make a quick buck. And for whatever reason, people don't attack him. He was the one that didn't have the funding. He was the one that kept setting up all these NFL ties. And the NFL was coming back and saying they're not related at all. Like, we're not connected to this league, and I don't understand it.
They were bringing in guys like Hines Ward and Troy Polamalu to try to give it a little bit more weight and to have like that NFL player feel to it. So that's why I was saying, like, were they trying to put some of that stuff in place to then be able to turn back and say, these are things that when we go to negotiate our contract, we want to add in addition to try to get a little bit more leverage.
But then at the end, I don't even think those guys did anything. I think they probably just gave them some money to say, hey, can we use your name? Because like I don't remember any ties with them actually doing anything with the league. I don't know.
I don't know either.
It's weird, but the league right now, I mean, no one is really out of the playoffs. You're going to have a battle for the second seed in the West. Only 4 teams make it, I believe. 2 in the West and 2 in the East. DC, we could talk about it. They have a hardball problem, Matt. They can't win on the road. Pep Hamilton learned from the best. He learned from Jim Harbaugh, and he decided, you know what? We're not going to be prepared on the road at all. We'll win all the home games, and we'll make the playoffs. And then we hope that we win on a neutral field, because I don't think they have an away game, right?
I don't know.
Because those performances were bad. I mean, they got killed on both away games. And Matt, they were both against teams that previously had not won a game. Right? Well, LA and Tampa Bay, that are both 1-3 right now.
Well, with Tampa, I had told you last week that I didn't think that they were a bad team, but it just looks like they're, like we've said the last couple weeks, they just have an identity problem. I mean, the team that to me really started clicking was St. Louis. The Battlehawks have kind of crept in there over the last 2 weeks and really started to show some stability and playing a lot better.
Well, Matt, sad for them, they have to go to D.C. this week, and D.C. doesn't lose at home. So that's going to be the battle, and I wonder if that's going to be a preview for the East Championship. If D.C. doesn't turn it back around, though, they could be done. It would be really weird for the first NFL season to have DC be the most dominant team through the first 2 weeks and then end up losing out the rest of their games in blowout fashion. Because people might have figured out Cardell Jones, Matt. They always say that once a quarterback gets so many throws on film, coaches can eliminate his strengths, and then he has to learn from his weaknesses. So we'll have to see if he adapts or not. Pep Hamilton is supposed to be the quarterback guy.
We'll find out. I know that game, because of the, what was it, a 10:30 start?
The starts, Matt, are annoying to me because that's the one thing, too, that I didn't want to bring up for the ratings, but don't change the time. And I know they're at the mercy of the TV stations, but I go to put on the game at 2, and it's like on at 3 or 4. And I'm like, how can I keep a consistent schedule if I don't know when the games are on?
Yeah, unless I'm actively looking, because I did the same thing with the Saturday games, thinking usually the first games were on at 2. It was like, all right, I'm ready to tune in, and it was like, oh wait, I got to wait till 4.
Yeah, so that's the one thing I hated, and like for college, like I had said in previous weeks, that's one of the strengths of college football. You know when the games are going to be on. You know, like CBS is going to have an SEC game on at 3:30. You know there's going to be a Big 10 ABC game at noon. Or Big 12, like whatever the big game is, and then there's going to be a game at 8. So, like, you know those set rules. You know the NFL's at 1 and 4. I really wish the XFL would have pushed to have their Sunday games in those 2 time slots. But any other games you saw from the XFL? Big performances and stuff?
Well, because it was the first game on Saturday, the LA Wildcats and the New York Guardians game stood out to me because McGloin was out with an injury, and New York was running with like a 2-quarterback system type thing, and I think they may have gotten a little bit of stability. Now, I mean, to me, the big thing with the XFL is it looks like right now, if you don't turn the ball over, you win. You know, you had with the Renegades this week, they had Landry Jones had 3 interceptions. I believe it was another week where Cardell Jones had some turnovers. It's like the weeks that the Guardians have lost, they've had multiple turnovers and have looked really bad in the process too, giving the ball away. That it just looks like if you're maintaining possessions, you're going to win the game. Which it's basic football theory, but it's definitely proving itself true in the XFL's early part of the season.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I wanted to bring up for the Renegades. Houston, for being undefeated, they didn't look dominant in that game. At least it looked like it was going to be a back and forth game, and the Renegades almost gave it away to them. And I just wonder how much longer they're going to be able to hold on to their undefeated record, because I think it helps the XFL if most of the teams have around the same record. Like, I hate that DC lost, but the fact that they lost to teams that didn't have wins, actually makes the league look a lot stronger. And I think we went back and forth on this a week or two ago when we talked about only having 8 teams. They should be all comparatively even in talent, at least just because of the numbers. It's not like all the talent's spread out and there's going to be like 16 teams when there's not 16 teams full of talent that the NFL is going to let go. You know what I mean? So 8, I feel like, is a good number. And that's why I hope they really don't expand. And I hope next year, if they keep getting the cable numbers, I wouldn't be surprised to see it be an ESPN-owned thing, where them and Fox Sports 1 or whatever, they say, hey, Fox might keep the good big Saturday night game, and maybe ABC does as well on Saturday, but I don't know why they would move it off ESPN if it's getting that big of numbers. I mean, if it's beating the NFL Combine, that's a sport event that people always say, like, oh, look, so-and-so can buy it, it's pretty cheap to produce. But if they're not even getting 1 million viewers, why not just show a football game? So I'm hoping that works out and we get into something that is going to be more sustainable. I think the quarterbacks, and we've seen a lot of changes. Like Tampa Bay was with Cornelius on, was it Sunday? So they're not even using, their starting quarterback was supposed to be Aaron Murray, right? Like they tried to bring in a big name guy.
He completely fell off the map. It went for Murray, and then it seems like for whatever reason they're still just really reluctant to use Quentin Flowers, and I don't understand.
Well, he left the team. Did we talk about that on the show? No, we didn't. Oh, that's right. That was my last tidbit I had here. Flowers decided to take a leave of absence, and I wonder if it's because he felt like he should be playing. I felt like he should be playing. After they won this past week, though, maybe him leaving was the spark that they needed, where they've been having quarterback controversies the entire season, starting back to Aaron Murray, and it made me wonder, are these teams going to put in their quarterbacks that are supposed to be starting because they're big-name quarterbacks, and they haven't done that. So I applaud them for that. Because like even the AAF, when they brought in Johnny Manziel, I thought, well, he's going to be the starter last year just because of the name. They barely played him. And now he's tweeting out like the XFL, like, yo, you guys need me. Like, no, they don't. They're going through quarterbacks like nobody cares.
I'm wondering with Landry Jones's injury if they would end up signing Manziel.
Maybe.
Because I thought that he's going to end up missing. Like, it's not as bad of an, like, they were thinking it was going to be like a bigger, I think, knee injury. It was the same injury that he had through camp that he re-aggravated. It was like, well, if he's going to miss a couple more weeks, do you bring in someone like Manziel that's willing to come in and play?
And maybe you do. I mean, it just depends, because I don't see Bob Stoops dealing with that, though. I mean, he has to have one of his other quarterbacks that's out there available, or at least someone from the same system that he can get to bring in to try to get some consistency without the off-the-field issues or the headaches. Plus, the money thing. Like, does he look like a guy that's going to take a lower pay cut? I don't think that's going to happen.
But compared to the nothing that he's getting right now.
You know who that doesn't play for money, Matt? Tim Tebow. He plays for God. And he's available. So they could plug him right in.
Well, I thought they reached out to him and he turned them down.
I told you that he said he was going to turn them down, but he's given one last shot at baseball. So next year, you could have a big Landry Jones, Tim Tebow platoon. Just like the Urban Meyer days. Maybe Urban Meyer comes back to coach. Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah, they could free Aaron Hernandez. Get him out on bail. Work release.
Oh, man. Anything else you got for the XFL?
Just crazy thing that in the second quarter, Cameron Artis-Payne goes barreling down the sideline and plows Hal Mummy over and breaks his leg and continues just to coach the rest of the game with a broken leg. So shout out to Coach for getting injured and still walking around the field and calling a game. Yeah,
that's crazy. I saw the footage. It looked like he should have squared up and delivered a hit to the guy. Shoulder square.
Knocked out his own running back.
You could hit him and help him up. He has pads on. It's not like he's going to deliver such a punishing blow that he gives him a concussion. Instead, you turn and ran, you stumbled because you're old, and you broke your leg. That should be sideline number 1. Always take the hit, or no matter if you deliver the hit, you don't get hurt. They always taught you that. If you're the one getting hit, that's when the injuries happen. He should have stepped into him. He should know by now. He's been coaching for how long? But yeah, that's the last thing I think I had for the XFL. So let's get back into high tempo. I know you had some NFL moves for us, so why don't you go ahead and get into those?
Well, we'll start off with the one that I think is going to end up happening out of Pittsburgh. Is I do think that Pittsburgh's ended up using their franchise tag on Bud Dupree, and for anyone that's following the Steelers, it's pretty much a no-brainer. They really don't have someone else of high value that they would want to spend that on, and I think that they'll use that as the crutch to kind of bridge that time to see if they're going to be able to sign him, or if he's able to sign a long-term deal. You know, if they can get both sides to match that up, he'll probably end up taking that and playing on a franchise tag. The other one that was kind of bigger that I don't even know what to think of it. The Broncos and Jaguars going to be making a trade that would send A.J. Boye to Denver for a 4th-round pick. Jacksonville, what are you doing? Like, they were a team that a couple seasons ago were knocking Pittsburgh out of the playoffs and appeared to be a quarterback away from being a serious Super Bowl contending team. They had a pretty good defense, and then they've just progressively just traded everyone away. They're just going back into like major rebuilding mode. And I don't understand what the thought process is with that, especially with their owner, Shad Khan, potentially looking at moving to London. What are you doing? What kind of product? Like, you're going to potentially move the team internationally and then have nothing to show for it. Like, that's the worst marketing plan. What are you going to market over there? Come see our team. We're going to get killed. Like, because we can't field anyone competitive unless you're planning on using the move overseas to be able to swing to your advantage if people have to travel across the ocean to play your games.
The Europe games annoy me. I don't understand why teams do that. And I know they talk about doing it for other sports. Like, I want to say, is it Michigan and Kentucky are playing over there in basketball? And it's like, why? Like, what are you doing? You're taking a home game away from one of those teams. And even if you do neutral site, they can't be getting such a great kickback in ratings and television money to make it worth it. For the NFL, I always forget the game's even on that morning. And I've lost some fantasy points because of it. Because, like, I just don't care enough to keep a track on, when's this Europe game or whatever. Plus, they always throw it on a stupid channel. It's always on the NFL Network. And that's not a channel that, like, I would be looking at in the morning. So, I don't know. The Jacksonville, it seems like it's a front office issue, though. You could look at them, the same argument I gave against the Bengals, or actually I was for the Bengals, but like Jacksonville doesn't have that tradition of winning, and they haven't even got to the point where they're letting off the field issues go. They still can't even control the locker room and the narratives around their quarterback position. You bring in Nick Foles, a known winner, and then you don't support him. It's like, what are you doing? That should have been their change. Instead, they keep talking about their other draft picks that they had at quarterback that didn't work out. And like, it's their own writers and like their own media that's like really bringing their team down. It's almost like they're doing what the Cowboys get, but on a much lesser scale, and they don't have the front office that knows how to handle it. Like, at least the Cowboys, Jerry Jones has been through it before. And he's going to try to make moves. Now, the game has changed. So when he's still building teams like he's in the 1990s and they're not working out for him, he has to adapt the way he builds his front office and stuff like that. But Jacksonville, you're right, a couple years ago, they had the team build up, and they're just letting everyone go away. So if they want to be a farm team, More power to him.
Yep.
Steelers, it's really looking like Vance McDonald's gone, Matt. I think they're going to move him to get the cap room. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. And are they going to bring in another quarterback? It doesn't look like it either. The tight end stuff they're going to address during the draft.
What about, do you think that they'll go after Eric Ebron from Detroit?
I don't know. How much do you think he's going to want?
I don't know.
Because I feel like that's a name that's going to command a couple million. You can't get rid of McDonald to try to open up a couple million of cap space only to sign another guy that's going to command another million.
Yeah, but I think part of the issue with McDonald is that he hasn't been, when he's playing, he's helpful, but he spends so much time injured.
That's true. And
so,
that's
even if you're trading apples for apples, but you're getting Ebron for a consistent 16 to 17 games, I would take that cap hit over signing, McDonald to a longer contract and having him only play 7 or 8 games.
True, but then at what point are you just putting a guy in when that's not even going to be the issue? I mean, we all know the issue's quarterback. Stay healthy, they're fine. Do they need a big impact tight end? I mean, you could argue that they need a better change of pace back. I would almost like to see them try to get some more speed in the backfield. A lot of their guys are very similar out of the backfield. You can catch slash tight ends or whatever. They got those guys from NC State. Get a burner. Get someone that could come in and spell Connor, because, there's a good chance he gets injured again. I don't even know how much time he has left.
It's a fair assessment.
So, a tight end, I feel like anyone that plugs and plays in the Steelers offense is going to be fine. So, plus they got Gentry, I think they still have him from Michigan at tight end. That's a big target. He's 6'7". So, that's going to be him getting caught up to the NFL speed soon. He might have a breakout year. I would say try to get another young tight end, even draft him late like they did with Gentry and see what happens. Get him in a 3rd or 4th round and try to address some of those other needs. I know they're trying to get wide receivers the past couple of years and some running backs, but at this point, we all know it comes down to the quarterback position. If Ben gets hurt, it feels like it's just going to be another throwaway season. And how many throwaway seasons are you willing to have? That's going to be the answer. Especially with the Ravens turning things around and looking like a juggernaut. I know they bowed out of the playoffs. They just have a young team that needs to learn how to win in the playoffs, and they could be very dangerous. It took the Chiefs how many years? Decades for Andy Reid. Decades. So you have another young team in your conference. You have, if Joe Burrow comes in and the Browns ever keeps talking about them turning the corner, I just don't think that they have the front office and chemistry type stuff where they're going to build a winner. I just don't think Cleveland has that. Look at what happened whenever they cleaned house and became the Ravens. They became winners, Matt. So, I don't know. It's going to be interesting because the other big one are the other quarterbacks. Tom Brady, Phillip Rivers, things like that. Where do all those go? What moves do other teams make? And can they keep it rolling? Anything else you have for the NFL?
No. Those were the big ones.
All right, I had some extra high-tempo stuff. I just put the football ones up front. But another big one. We talk about some video game stuff on the show. Doug Flutie's Maximum Football, Matt. I stumbled upon this game. I forget where I even saw it. But they tout it as having 130 college football teams in this video game. And I thought, oh, man, Doug Flutie somehow got college football back. So I look at it. They're fake teams. They're advertising this like you have 130 college teams. They're made up. They're not college teams. You could just say you have 130 teams. Why are you saying they're college teams? What's tying them to college? Do you have to take your guy and put him in class? I don't understand The video game, and I appreciate what you're doing, Doug. Trying to get your video game out there. I saw it was only for the Xbox and the PlayStation, which was disappointing to me because at least put it on computer. And there's another one, Axis Football, that's out. And we'll try to do some breakdowns on these this summer, maybe on the Southbound Sports YouTube channel. So make sure you follow us there or subscribe to our channel. We post our live videos for the show up there every week anyway. So you can catch this and see the big board as we go through it. But I just want a big football game. Madden has become into like a weird gambling type game where they just keep giving you packs of cards. I don't give two shits about cards. I've never really collected trading cards. To me, they are worthless. Why people collect them is beyond me. But you have a video game version of that, even more worthless, Matt. The only benefit to collecting them on the video game compared to in real life is you don't just have a bunch of clutter in your house. When you have a video game, you at the end of the year, whenever they decide that the game's over, you lose those fake cards because they're not real. So you don't have any space. You just throw your game away because it's worthless after 1 year, and they have the next one come out. So, Doug, the last game that tried to do that, I think, got sued to oblivion because they were letting people upload rosters. I forget what game that even was. But keep fighting the good fight. Just don't tell me that there's college teams when there's not college teams. That's the end to that rant. You have anything to say about that?
I didn't even know that he was coming out with it. So good for him.
Apparently it's a game that's been being made in Canada for the past 2 or 3 years. And somehow they got him to sign his name to it. So it was like a CFL game. You can buy like the old seasons. I think like they finally just came out with Maximum Football 2019. Like it just launched now, like a year behind. Come on, guys. Maybe by next year they'll put it on the PC so that you can play football on your laptop, or even better, try to get it on the Nintendo Switch. Then you can play on the go. The graphics already look low, so I don't think they'd have any issue with them running it. Madden doesn't put a game out anywhere else. Maybe they'll bring back NCAA. I don't know. Everyone keeps talking about it. We'll see what happens. The other big topic here for High Tempo, the coronavirus, Matt. We haven't talked about this at all, but it's starting to affect sports. And the big one that I saw is they're moving some of the Olympic qualifiers out of, where is the Olympics? Is it in Tokyo?
Yeah.
So they're moving it out of Japan. And if we're wrong, we apologize. I don't look up the logistics. They're moving it to Spain, though. And so it just makes me wonder. Everyone keeps talking about how the Olympics are too big to move to other countries. Why do they all have to be in the same country? Like, that's my beef. Like, why is the Olympics one big thing? It's not like people are all going to every event when they go on. Isn't the events aren't they all running at the same time in different venues and stuff? So like even if it's in like LA or somewhere, like they're all spread out throughout the city at the same exact time. So you can't be like, I'm going to the Olympics and I'm going to sit in my seat for like 3 weeks in a row. Like if they're really worried about the breakout, just move them. Why would you cancel the entire Olympics? Just say like, hey, we're gonna spread them out. So you pick and choose if you think it's safe for you to come. Very easy. Everyone has televisions these days, Matt. They have satellites and all this other stuff where you can watch the games at any time.
But I think the draw of that is trying for the host country to make some money off it, getting people to come in and helping that country's economy or that city's economy. And by telling people don't go, you're going to end up hurting them. It's going to hurt the amount of money that they spent setting up and organizing and doing all that stuff to host it, that then to come back and end up losing money on it.
Yeah, it's just like the World Cup where everyone is corrupt and they're all taking bribes. And yeah, you're right, probably getting money on the side to host the event. When with modern times, you don't need any of that. It's almost like, and this is kind of off topic, but I saw the NCAA is looking at having some teams do some type of tumbling, which looked like it was like half cheerleading. It was like, I forget what it was called. Let me see if I can look up the official name so people don't think that I'm just making this up. But they're looking at adding another women's sport so that they have other competitions. But let's see if I can even find it.
But while you're looking that up, I think it's one of those things that, like, it's just the coronavirus has swept through, and I think that they're better off trying to contain it as much as they can. And if it means delaying the Olympics or putting it off a year, then so be it. If it means throwing things off, I'd rather the rest of these other countries, because not every other country has the same standards of medical care that we provide in our country. So for our athletes, for people, for spectators, for everyone, I would much rather them err on the side of canceling, postponing, delaying, make sure that they have the vaccines and different stuff available so that people participating don't get infected or spread it to other countries. Try to keep it as isolated as you can, and then once we know that it's under control, then have at it and do what you need to do. But it's not worth contaminating the rest of the world.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know how they would. I guess the Olympics people traveling is what would spread it, but we'll see what they do. I looked it up. The other sport that they're looking at adding is acrobatics and tumbling, where it looks kind of like cheerleading, if you want to look it up. But it's almost like you throw them up in the air. It's like a team of girls, kind of like the base, and then they throw them up. They do some twists and stuff. They catch them, and then they give them a grade. But to me, I don't understand sports where you have to get scores by a judge. Because, like, how does anyone know what to give? I've done judging in events like that, and you just kind of make it up. You're like, that looked pretty good. Good. 9.8 or whatever. And then, like, I guess you fell. You're, like, hoping someone falls as a judge so that you don't have to decide if you should give them an extra 1/10 of a point or not. That's my take on it. Like, oh, man, I really wish they would have messed up there. How am I supposed to decide between these two performances, Matt?
But typically those people are experts in what they're doing, so they have, like, general scoring guidelines. It's not like you're sitting there judging a beer league belly flop contest as your summer barbecue.
No, I've thought about this very long, Matt, and I think that they need to get robotic judges on it. Major League Baseball's been looking at it. They can actually have, like, a scanner now, or actually just put motion capture on, like they do for, like, Mortal Kombat video games, where they have a guy dress up in a suit and do the moves so that the fighting looks really authentic. That's what they need to do for these tumblers and stuff. You wear the motion capture, and then it will tell you how crooked and stuff you are. So if you have scoliosis or whatever, like, you might be at a disadvantage, but most of the time they would know how good your performance is if you're, like, wobbling and things like that. Otherwise, humans could just be taking bribes and stuff. I don't believe it. I want to see a standard robot tell everyone their performance scores. You're laughing. What? I mean, you don't do any sports like that
that you know of.
I didn't even know what they would even have for men, where they just make up scores. Gymnastics, I guess.
Men's figure skating.
I thought they only did that in couples. Do they have solos?
I think.
You would know. I wouldn't know that.
I don't know. I'm too busy preparing for the luge.
But that's a sport where you know who wins. Like in Cool Runnings, when those guys wrecked, you knew that they lost. If they took a knee during a spin, you wouldn't know. You're like, oh, was that part of their moves? I don't know. What am I watching here? They picked up their sled, they pick up their skate and hold it above their head. You could think that's part of the performance. Let's get into college basketball before we wrap up the show. There are 8 Big Ten basketball teams ranked in the top 25, which is a ton. It's almost like SEC football dominant right now. Except in college basketball, there are a ton more teams. because you have all those little conferences, which makes me think, Matt, this is my bold prediction, that the Big Ten is going to bow out of the tournament early. Because I've been watching, and the only team that has talent to go deep is Michigan State, and for whatever reason, they've been having the same issue as Duke, where they can't win consistently, and they seem to choke, and you know how like Duke always loses to someone they're not supposed to, except for that one odd year they won the championship a few years ago. Michigan State's been having that same issue during this regular season. If you watch Duke's performance and Michigan State's performance, some of the losses they had were just head-scratching, and I have a feeling that is going to be the only reliable team the Big Ten has in the NCAA tournament. Maryland, I know that they're like leading the conference right now, but their coach, Turge, he's not done anything in the postseason. He has choked every year. Worse than Andy Reid, Matt. Worse. They've joined the Big Ten to boost the Big Ten basketball profile.
I don't think you get to say that about Andy Reid now that he's a Super Bowl winner. We get to retire that one.
Well, that's why I brought it up, because he is a winner. And so, like, for Turge to have Maryland make a run, even to make a Final Four, would be very Andy Reid-esque this year. Because they were brought into the conference to be a basketball school. They haven't won. Haven't won anything in men's basketball. I don't even know if they might have made one Sweet 16. If that. They might not even have made that, Matt. They're always like a higher seed in the NCAA tournament, and they always lose to someone. So they've never made a Final Four since they've been in the Big Ten. And so you're going to tell me this year's the year I'm supposed to trust them? I don't see it. They just lost to Ohio State. And so I have a feeling like they might get the Big Ten regular season basketball trophy, but I don't see them winning the Big Ten tournament, and I sure as hell don't see them making a Final Four. And I mean, I hope I'm wrong, but I don't know any Big Ten team outside of Michigan State that could make a run, and I don't see them doing it. They did it last year to a Final Four. Who did Michigan State end up losing to? Was it Texas Tech? I don't remember now. But I don't see them doing it again. So I think you look at it, the Big Ten has 8 basketball teams ranked. I don't even know if they are going to get 3 teams to the Elite 8. I'm saying that on the show. So that's my record. I hope I'm wrong, and I hope Michigan's one of them. So there's that. You got anything else for college basketball?
No, we're getting closer to that time of year where we're going to start playing for keeps.
Yeah, we'll know by next week's show who won the regular season conferences. Maryland's playing. Did they play today? They might have actually locked it up. We should look that up while we're doing the show, because people listening to it might be making fun of me saying that Maryland finally won the conference. But I couldn't remember if they played tonight or if they play tomorrow. So let's look. Oh, Matt, I couldn't have been more right. Maryland just lost at Rutgers. They are now tied for the lead in the Big Ten. They play Michigan at home. They have Michigan at home. If they want to win a Big Ten regular season title, and it's going to be split. So they haven't had an outright title in decades in basketball, and they're a supposed basketball school. They are now tied for first with Michigan State, Illinois, and Wisconsin. There's a 4-way tie. Penn State is on a 2-game losing streak since we talked about them on the show. They could have been tied for first, Matt. They were 2 games away. 2 losses in a row. If they would have won those, they would have been tied for first right now. And it would have been hilarious to have Penn State win a possible basketball conference championship the first year Maryland wins theirs. But now Maryland might not even win it. One of those 4 teams, if Maryland can't beat Michigan on Sunday, I believe the game is, the 8th, they might choke away that. And like I said, if they can't close out a tournament against Rutgers, Matt, Michigan has never lost to Rutgers in basketball. Ever. They've been in the league the same exact time as Maryland. Maryland can't even beat them to clinch the Big Ten.
Because that's the Shiano effect. He's coming back now. All the sports are going to start performing well.
Hey, don't bring up football, because Michigan did lose to Rutgers that one time. Brady Hoke was out there. So don't bring that up. That's a rough memory. But that's all I have. Got anything for the final bell?
No, just keep tuning in. We appreciate the support. Check out our website. We're making changes, and it's looking good.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry for the scratchy voice today. No idea why I lost it randomly. Probably getting sick or something. But making some changes. It's that time of the year, the off season. So if you're watching the video, you'll see that it's changed a little bit. I'm trying to redo some of the room setup and try to get some extra things. I know we talked about improving the video stuff for those that watch on video. And last year we made a bunch of equipment changes to get that close to happening. But it just haven't had the time with football and trying to keep up stuff for the show. So hopefully now in the off season while the XFL is going on, hey, just like ESPN does, we'll be able to try out some new things. And if there's anything you would like to see, definitely let us know. Go to southboundsports.com. We're continuously working on updating that to try to get some more features there as well. And got some big things coming up with the NFL draft, getting into the Stanley Cup playoffs soon, NBA finals, things like that we always talk about, MCAA basketball tournament. So definitely check that out. If there's anything you would like us to cover, please let us know because we'll be making those changes. And thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.